This week's Jewish Week looks at how the world observed International Holocaust Remembrance Day, who did what, who said what, and who warned of what ahead. First, and perhaps most appropriately, we go to Auschwitz-Birkenau death camp, where survivors and officials took part in a somber ceremony marking the 67th anniversary of its liberation. Prayers were said, and candles laying at the foot of a monument to the camp's victims. Directors at the memorial and museum said that the 70-year anniversary of the start of the mass killings made this year's memorial particularly special. To mark the date, the only remaining door to one of the gas chambers went on public display, a solemn reminder if one was needed. From Poland to Germany, where the Bundestag honored those killed with a ceremony. Leaders made poignant calls for Germans to stand up against right-wing extremism and hatred. Their words carried extra resonance after a recent study found that about 1 in every 5 Germans holds anti-Semitic attitudes. 91-year-old Warsaw ghetto survivor Marcel Reich-Ranicki also spoke. He reminded those listening that the deportation of Warsaw Jews had only one purpose: death. In Belgrade, the Serbian president laid a wreath at the monument to the victims of World War II, which used to be part of a concentration camp. In his speech, he said that Serbia wanted to join the European community and that in Europe there was no place for those who would commit such crimes. From Serbia up to Russia, and in Moscow, the Russian Jewish community marked the day with a ceremony in one of the city's main synagogues. The chief rabbi of Russia told the audience that the unborn children of the victims needed to be remembered as well, while the German ambassador to Russia said that the Holocaust would forever remain the blackest page in Germany's history. Staying in Europe, and the scenes were less serene in Vienna, Austria, where almost 3,000 people gathered to protest against the WKR ball, known for attracting right-wing fraternities and extremists. The timing was indeed inflammatory, being held on the anniversary of Auschwitz. There was more dignity across the Atlantic. Over in Argentina, which has the continent's largest Jewish community, people gathered in Buenos Aires for a special event. In attendance was Argentina's Jewish foreign minister Hector Timmerman, but the day's most emotive words came from the president of the delegation of Argentina-Israeli associations. Speaking of the survivors, he said that with their skin tattooed with the mark of infamy and their hearts wounded by a wrongful past, they constitute a living testament to the darkest days of humanity. From South America to North. In New York, the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon dedicated this year's Remembrance Day to children who were the victims of the Holocaust. Whilst necessary, continuing to teach the universal lessons of the Holocaust wasn't enough, said Israel's ambassador to the UN.
At this very podium, Iran's Ahmadinejad stands every year and shamelessly denies the Holocaust while his government threatens to carry another one. Our duty is clear. It is not enough to be good. We must know what to do when we face evil. It is not enough to know what we stand for. We must know what we stand against.
The theme of threat continued. Holocaust survivor Dr. Robert Krell asked those assembled whether there wasn't something to fear lurking around the corner.
Are we hearing Holocaust denial? Not from some misguided individuals, but from nations represented here at the United Nations. The world's longest hatred has found new practitioners. Has anti-Semitism found fertile ground once again? Will the words that are heard today lead to genocide tomorrow? Fortunately, you have chosen to mark this day of Holocaust remembrance as a reminder of what is possible when racism and prejudice run wild.
From warning back to remembrance and to our journey's end, in perhaps the most fitting place of all. Visitors to Yad Vashem have had the chance to see a new exhibition of drawings made by Jews during the Nazi era. Having opened a few days earlier, the last portrait exhibition depicts hundreds of black and white portraits of Jews during World War II, living in ghettos, concentration camps, and slave labor communities. As visitors walked along the white walls, many examined the drawings looking to find familiar faces, family members, or friends. Hannah Weingarten-Wertheimer was only 12 when the war started and found a portrait of herself on display, drawn in her hometown of Prague. There were other stories to tell too. This is Nera Gold. Her mother's entire family was killed by the Nazis, and she spent years in search of some kind of memory or documentation related to her loved ones. Among the portraits presented to Yad Vashem were two of Nera's grandparents. Curators and researchers used Yad Vashem's databases and archives to retrieve information about the subjects in the portraits. But whether or not the individual identities are known, the collective identity is crystal clear. It's an identity that visitors to the exhibition can quite literally come face to face with.